Hi, this is Karen Newman, and this is the Saturday Human Colony Hucolo webinar. It is Saturday, the 18th of October, 2019. And today we have a very special guest who will be in residence with us once a month for the next few months. We're very excited. And there we go. Somehow I have a double thing. There we go. Sorry for that. We have our special guest, Tyler Ellison. Hi, Tyler. How are you?
Hello, Karen. I am very well. How are you?
Good. We're glad to have you, and we're excited to have you for the next at least 6 months, maybe hopefully longer, but we'll be seeing you once a month for the next 6 months. So that's really exciting. So welcome to the webinar. And just before we get started, we'll start with a blessing, and then we'll come back and we'll talk with you, if that's good for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Don's going to do a blessing. Reinhardt's going to do a blessing. Go ahead.
Sana koshite wanda hirutori zataha kaanda handishikohi tamahaisetu dalahanta hiku samahat koshuke samatakai toroko tosa tanaka.
Reinhard?
Mayakan malaki no kona kana dai kulaka makai kuna to ki mai kulokotaki to makai klakapato. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler? Whoa. Oh, it didn't switch. For some reason it stays. Tyler, you have to say something so the camera will switch to you. No problem. Because Zoom is voice controlled, voice activated. So that's the way, that's the reason why it does that. So yeah. So for the people who, I mean, people know you a little bit, but for the people who don't know you, why don't you just briefly introduce yourself? Because we have new people all the time. So why don't you just tell people just like the 3 to 5 minute introduction to you and to your background and, you know, what you're doing with your channeling.
Yeah, so I started channeling in about 2014. I first began the process, and it really started for me when I was just sharing channeled material, but not digitally. I would just share the teachings vocally, and I found that when I would share the teachings, I would actually be in the same type of wavelength as the channeler who had delivered it. And that's when I was like, whoa, that feels really different. There's something unique about when I am speaking and I'm thinking about channeling. I could detect a really strong difference in the way my brain was working and the way I was feeling. Yeah. And that was kind of a foreshadowing of obviously what was to come. About a year later, I started channeling Pleiadians initially, utilizing different Pleiadian contact symbols. And I actually channeled a Pleiadian group named Mira, and I stopped channeling them as my primary guides, but now I'm on the web. There's other people channeling this collective. And I'm like, oh man, like I was channeling this in 2015. I'm like, that's hilarious. But so it was very cool. I was like, geez, first time trying to contact somebody came through. So that was very exciting. And now I focus mainly on a Sassani being from the planet Essassani known as 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗧𝗡. And this is the same civilization that other Sassani beings are a part of, such as Ellison and Bashar, as well as Bori, 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗧𝗘𝗡𝗧. These are other beings that have been channeled from this extraterrestrial species. And this is the primary being that I bring through. I really enjoy his energy. I enjoy his teachings and what he has to say. He works largely with hybrid children and training hybrid children and being able to develop extraordinary abilities. They all seem to possess this, but apparently some of the hybrid children have pretty powerful abilities that are stored in some of the DNA that has been introduced into their bodies. And he focuses, I think, on specific ones that relate to dimensional travel. He's sort of giving me info right now, but it relates to the idea of dimensional travel, reality manipulation in a way that we would understand as like moving objects, telekinetic type of things. But it's not limited to this. But he spends a lot of time working with them, and he brings them on different training projects. So right now he's above the planet, about 1,300 miles above the planet, and was recently over Egypt. He still may be there. He's saying he is still there, and it's likely it will remain there for a period of time. They're having a bunch of beings that are coming to that area, it seems. But that's about a little bit about my primary guide. I also channel a wide variety of other species as well, and other societies. such as Atlantean energies. I've channeled them before, and they're fantastic. I've done Lyran energies, particularly feline. I've also done plant spirit energies, animal spirits, Octurian. Octurians are really cool. And obviously Pleiadians, as I've said, and some ones from Sirius, and the Sirius ones are pretty advanced as well too. But I find Ryok's just the one that's the most accessible. I find I'm familiar with his personality, so I just gravitate to him, and people seem to really respond well to his teachings. So that's a little bit about myself, about my channeling. I also do nutritional consultations, supplement health, alternative health practices, and I do that for myself and then for people that are seeking to rejuvenate their bodies. And I also do energy healing and Taoist meditations. These are meditations that work the chakras, they work the acupuncture meridians, and they are pretty much designed to promote extreme longevity and emotional, mental, physical balance. So that's a little bit about myself.
Perfect. And so is your website up yet?
It is about to be up. I'm almost done. And it is going to just be my name, 𝗪𝗚𝗓𝗓.com. So if you give me like less than a week, I think that thing's going to be live. So for all of those of you who tune in a period of time that's later than a week from now, get on 𝗪𝗚𝗓𝗓.com and you can.
Anyone after the 26th of October, they'll find you on your website. And then also too, you have an event coming up, correct?
Yeah, correct. So for anyone who is in the Manhattan area, November 2nd, I will be doing an event, and I'll be posting and promoting the event on my Facebook page. It's going to be a live channeling session done by myself and my primary guide, Ryok, and we're going to be talking about ancient civilizations that have existed in the United States and in other parts of the world before, as well as some of the natural vortex chakra energies in the New York area, and how we can utilize those major chakras to be able to access the connections we have to these previous societies, so we can make connections with guides, receive informations from other lifetimes, as well as deepen our connection with the land and the ocean, because New York's essentially an island. So there's a lot of island energy that also parallels with Atlantis. So there's Atlantean themes coming out, which is very fitting with the whole October and Fall of Atlantis correlation. So a lot of exciting connections. So I'm very pleased to announce that event.
You subscribe to the idea that Halloween is actually the day that Atlantis fell? Do you subscribe?
I do. I've heard some variations of that. I've heard that it was like the eve of Atlantis falling. I've heard being said that it was the day it fell. But I do think that's the case. And when I channel Ryok and he speaks about it, he also talks about it in that way.
Interesting. I'd never heard that until just the other day. Someone told me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had heard it years ago, and I remember feeling like, I remember when I first heard it, I was like, that's a connection. I'm like, I wouldn't have guessed.
Put it together, yeah. I wouldn't have put it together. So that's really great. And I think it's good. You do forget when you're in Manhattan that it's an island, and, because it's so built up and so developed and actually so big, that you forget that you're really on an island. So I appreciate that. So I was going to tell you one thing. Oh, please post that on the Hucolo page as well to the Hucolo members, and then people, can check it out. So, okay. So we're about ready. If you're ready to.
Oh, yeah, I am ready to begin. Absolutely. Very excited. Thank you all for having me too. It's a great honor.
We're glad to have you, and we're happy to, promote you and to have you be part of the Hucolo family. So welcome again. And what we'll do is we'll take questions from people in the YouTube chat, also in the chat here. Please just type your question, or not. You don't have to type your question, but just say, I have a question, or question with like a Q, and then we'll call on you in sort of order. And is there anything off the table, or is there anything you prefer to talk about or not talk about?
I mean, ask whatever you like, really. I would say in general, I mean, there's always that taboo channelers have of having people ask about other people. Like someone's like, what should I do about my dad? Or what should I do about this person? But I mean, in all honesty, like, just go for it. See what they say. I don't know if they'll turn it down or take it, but if you're inspired to ask it and it feels good for you to ask it, by all means. So nothing, as far as I'm aware, is off the table.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll give you the time you need, and we'll be here when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Very excited.
Yeah, we're very excited as well. So.
All right, I thank you all for coming to this interaction. It is my passion, pleasure, joy, and excitement to be able to converse with all of you in this unique format. How are you doing?
Welcome, and we're speaking with Ryak, I believe.
Yes, this is correct. You are speaking with 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗓𝗧 in this way,
Ryok,
as you
sorry.
understand my name to be pronounced if you were to provide a name to me.
Well, we will pronounce it in that way, 𝗪𝗘𝗓𝗓. Very nice to speak with you.
And a pleasure to be able to speak with you again.
Would you like to start with a message then for us, just to say what's ever really active with you, or if you feel is active in humanity and something that really needs to be said? We would appreciate it.
Yes, of course. We will begin this transmission with the following idea. Understand that what you call your Egyptian society is largely linked in many ways to a collective memory and understanding that you have with a variety of other ancient civilizations. When you think of your Egyptian civilizations, it automatically begins to open your connections up to a variety of other societies, some of which you understand to be Lemuria, some of which you understand to be Atlantis, understanding there is another civilization known to be called Mu, understanding that these are all different societies that have existed throughout your history that have energy connection points to what you understand to be the Sphinx, largely speaking. Understanding what you call Egypt and the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, are built upon a particular convergence of ley lines and underground energetic vortices that allow for communication from your planet's Akashic record to be channeled into these structures. Understanding these types of vortices beneath your surface are linked, as I've said, to these civilizations, but also to the versions of those civilizations that still exist. Even though you may understand them as being in your past, remember your past exists right now. So when you tap into those energies of the Great Pyramids as well as the Sphinx, you are beginning to allow for your ancestral DNA memory to open up, to be able to access connections, secrets, and insights from these other societies. The idea would be, when you are meditating upon the pyramids or the Sphinx, begin to recognize it's just acting as a symbol for what you consider to be ancient wisdom. So in that way, utilizing these ancient structures as a permission slip tool to connect with ancient wisdom will allow for many of you to do just that. It will allow for you to, in many ways, access, again, these vortices and Akashic connection points so you can begin to read the record of these civilizations, what these civilizations went through, and the aspects of these civilizations that are most relevant to your current societal games, which you call your games of Europe or your games of the United States, the games of civilization you are currently playing. It will allow for you to draw upon the different understandings of these ancient civilizations so you can have a greater context and level of clarity for many of the different challenges your current societies are undertaking. With this being said, we would like to begin to talk about the Sphinx. Understanding the Sphinx in general is much older than what you understand to be the Great Pyramids. And understand the Sphinx was built by an ancient society that has long been forgotten. The Egyptians in that way, which you consider to be the ancient Egyptians, were the inheritors of the Sphinx. The idea is, when the Sphinx was inherited, it allowed for the priest class, the shaman class from the Egyptian civilizations, the ancient Egyptians, to be able to read the records that were contained within the Sphinx, that allowed for them to open up a particular gateway that allowed for them to begin to download schematics, download blueprints that were in many ways linked to what you understand to be Atlantean civilizations and much more ancient civilizations. In that way, the idea is the Great Pyramids of Egypt, as you would understand them to be, in many ways are based upon Atlantean understandings, Atlantean schematics, and were then newly created after the Sphinx. The pyramids in that way were constructed through a teamwork effort that was utilizing human energy, as well as what you'd understand to be extraterrestrial energy, as well as what you'd understand to be earth elemental energies. Understanding this creation process of the pyramids allowed for a particular type of unity consciousness to be formed throughout the humans, the elementals, and the extraterrestrials, because it was a team effort and it involved all of these groups working together. It allowed in that way for the ancient Egyptians to be able to craft the pyramids utilizing off-world technology and on-world technology and on-world natural abilities in a very effective manner. This creation process of the pyramids was a synchronized effort that gave rise to pyramidal construction across your globe. In many ways, that was attempting to link all of the populations of your planet together in what would be considered to be a unity consciousness, a direct understanding of oneness and a direct understanding of the connection that each being has to one another. These pyramidal constructions were also being utilized to send messages to a variety of different star systems in an attempt to invoke what you would consider to be open contact with multiple worlds. Understanding that it was semi-successful for some time, the idea is that the human collective shadow at that time required greater amounts of purification. And as the planet began to raise its vibration in relationship to these pyramidal constructs and other extra-dimensional beings began to pop in, it began to trigger some of these energies within the shadow, and it began an evolved acceleration in the process you would understand to be called lesson learning. These ancient humans in that way then began to go into what you'd understand to be conflict after they had received many of these teachings, because the energies within them that still required transformation, that were in many ways relevant to other extra-dimensional incarnations that are connected to Earth in that way, to then require processing. And this in many ways is what led to the understanding of the pyramids and their abilities to be forgotten. And it is also what has allowed for some of the pyramids to become obscured by the natural land formations. And it is why you still have so many underground pyramids, why you still have so many underwater pyramids and so many pyramids that are still covered in snow that have not yet been discovered. It's because this network in that way was not able to continue. However, because you are now building levels of unity consciousness within your current societies, you are beginning to discover more pyramidal structures. This is reflecting your collective unity consciousness process. Because you are beginning to make that heart-based, crown-based connection to one another, the idea is you are now able to observe your external reality matching that internal change. Therefore, you are beginning to manifest more pyramidal discoveries on your planet, which is an externalized reflection of the idea of your unity consciousness strengthening once more. This, in many ways, concludes our transmission. However, we are happy to accept any questions, comments about the transmission, or about anything you are inspired to bring to us. Thank you so much for your attention in this conversation.
Thank you. Actually, you answered the question. My question was, why did humanity forget about the pyramids and how to use them? And the question is now is, can their use be rejuvenated?
Remember that because you are a different society, you have a different relationship than the ancient peoples did with the pyramids. Their intimate understanding of them allowed for them to interact with them in a much more powerful way, in a much more direct way than many of you are able to. However, as you increase your consciousness expansion process, you may find the pyramids will reveal the information you need to know to more greatly interact with them. And the idea is, as you as a society get closer to extraterrestrial contact, the understandings of how to utilize these pyramids will also eventually be restored to your civilizations. So over time, yes, it will be something that is available to all of you. And in the interim, those of you that are inspired to work with the pyramids understand they have their own sentience. They are aware. They are beings in their own way because of how they are programmed. So you can actually begin to forge a telepathic link with the pyramids, and you can begin to draw upon, again, the ancestral wisdom that's being channeled into the pyramids because of the centers the pyramids are built upon.
Okay. Do they have beings that are governing them, or are they sentient themselves?
They are sentient themselves in terms of how they are designed. They are, in many ways, you could say, extensions of what you'd understand to be the earth consciousness. You could almost understand it as the earth, in many ways, has created a microcosm of its overall sentience in the pyramids. Just as you are, in that way, a microcosm of the earth's sentience, you can understand the pyramids have also been designed as such. They are aware in their own way, and they also have a variety of beings that work with them. And it's one of the ways that they are able to still remain active. Now, remember, they still remain active even though members of your society are not using them in the original ways that they were designed to be used because of that sentience.
Right. Okay. All right. Is there any other structure that is now, because not everyone can get to Egypt or to any of these great structures, nor do they have the ability to build something, but is there any other structure or construction that humanity can use, utilize, or create themselves that would serve the same function a little bit, something like modern day?
You don't have to actually be in Egypt to interact with these structures. Remember,
okay, so that you can interact to them telepathically.
Absolutely, yes. And the idea is the tool you understand to be a crystal pyramid in many ways can act as just that, a microcosm of that grand pyramid that you have in Egypt, as well as the ones that you have throughout your planet. The idea is to create a telepathic linkage between the crystal pyramid and whatever pyramid structures you wish to interact with. And you can even in that way link multiple pyramidal structures to the crystal pyramid. And then the idea is you would be able to allow for yourself to go into a relaxed state and perform intuitive readings on that crystal pyramid in a way that allows for you to act as if you are drawing upon the wisdom of the pyramids it is connected to.
The other question I have is, I know that when you do meditation in a group, it's much stronger. Was it the practice of the peoples to do more group-oriented control of the pyramids as opposed?
Yes, absolutely. There were multiple chambers in the pyramids that different amounts of people would occupy, and they would configure themselves in different geometric seated positions, or sometimes standing, that would allow for them to utilize the different chambers in a way that would be in resonance with the architecture of each of the individual chambers. And it would allow for beings to be able to have a variety of different experiences whilst in the pyramid that are connected to communing in that way with other dimensions, as well as traveling into other dimensions altogether. In many ways, it could blast people's consciousness into other realities, and it would allow for their bodies to remain in a very preserved state so they could spend extended amounts of time traveling into other locations. And because time works differently in other locations, they could have almost entire lifetimes in another location while their physical body remained in the meditative state preserved on earth, and it would allow for them to be able to go through these experiences and then return to their physical body, and it would be almost as if they had lived multiple lives in other realities while still being in the human life.
And then the time passed in the human life would have been much shorter then, maybe a matter of minutes or hours compared to what they had experienced in another dimension? Or
yes, in general, they would experience it when they would return as a timeless state where it almost felt like no time had passed at all.
Interesting. There's a question from Mimi Clara, and she's asking, were pyramids healing chambers? That's what she...
Yes, some of the pyramids have chambers within them that are designed for healing. Yes.
Okay. And then there's also a question, and I don't know if this is something you would do, but do you take healing requests for people asking for healing?
We do healing advising largely. We do healing requests in a different way than many of you are used to. Understanding our healing energies in that way are done when many of you are dreaming.
Okay. Okay.
We do not necessarily have sessions where we do them in the way that you are used to, but we offer a variety of different meditations that can have healing as a side effect of the meditation, but the meditations are not specifically designed for healing of the body. It is mainly to activate the different sensory chakras, so a being can increase their telepathy and their abilities. A side effect of this largely is a reduction in pain, because in order to open those centers effectively, you must open up the heart. And as you open up the heart and then open up these centers, a side effect of that is you shift into the reality where your body is more greatly healed or completely healed.
Okay, I'll ask, this person has asked for healing, but I'm going to ask their question in a different way. They have insomnia, a chronic amount of insomnia, and poison damage. So do you have any recommendations on the best way to utilize healing for insomnia and poison damage?
Yes, the first step is to embrace your reality as it is, number one, and to generate what you understand to be positive emotion, positive feeling, positive belief surrounding your current situation. Accept it as it is, and then completely let it go. Understand that you can alter your definition of yourself. When you define yourself as someone who has been poisoned or someone who has insomnia, you are in many ways attaching a subjective label to your I am presence, and you then create the I am presence in the moment to be based on those labels. So the idea is embrace the labels you have given yourself as a person who is experiencing insomnia and a person who has experienced types of toxicity and poisoning. Embrace that reality, love that reality, because it's the negative judgments about that reality that actually keep an anchor to it. So the idea is to accept it, embrace it, and then realize it's not fundamentally true to who you are. And to then go into a state of neutrality, a state of letting go. That is what your earth is for. Your earth in that way assists you in the process of letting go and becoming neutral. So those energies can be in many ways given to your planet. You can let go of them, you can drop them, and the forces of gravity of your earth take that into the planet, and the planet transforms it for you. The idea is to simply let go of that identification and begin to define yourself as someone who is already healed and someone who was never poisoned in the first place. And what will happen is you're going to start to then use your energy to shift to a reality where that becomes your state of being. Now, as you think about that version of yourself that's never been poisoned and the version of yourself who's never had insomnia, you are in the state of being of that reality where that is true. And the idea is that what you consider to be the passage of time from that moment represents the parallel reality shifting process of fully embodying that already healed reality, that already healed state of yourself. That in general will allow for you to be able to much more easily let go of the idea of the challenges and the understanding of suffering in relationship to those health ailments. In general, if it allows for you to feel better and if it is the highest excitement for you, you can begin to utilize different detoxification means for your body, because understand that if you are in that way identifying as someone who has been poisoned and you are experiencing that toxicity in your reality, part of embracing that reality, loving that reality, is to treat that reality as it is through the lens of love. And the idea is to utilize the formula our society gives of following your passion in relationship to treating that issue. You may find that a powerful detoxification process may actually reduce the insomnia completely. Because as I am scanning into your field, I am detecting that the insomnia in many ways is connected to that idea of the body being in a state of fight or flight mode. Mm. And that is because of what you consider to be the poisoning. When there is poison in the system, the body essentially thinks to itself, I am dying. That is partially what your biological process begins to say to itself when there are too many toxins. The body says, oh, this is it. And it starts to go into a panic mode, which of course you can always transform and shift away from. But in general, that is the initial biological response of your system when it comes into contact with poison in multiple versions of reality generally. So the idea would be a detoxification process may assist you more greatly in that idea of letting go of those toxins. And then as you shift into the neutral state and you let go of the concept altogether and you embrace the already healed state, it will allow for you to move more fully into that reality without any anchor or without any attachment to the you that you used to be.
Thank you very much for that. There's actually another question with a question about their back, but I would think that this would probably apply to them as well. They have pain in their back. Yes.
Remember, as you embrace and as you love yourself while you have whatever the condition is that you have, apply the formula of following your excitement and passion in relationship to exploring ways to assist your body. So if you feel inspired to invoke a health protocol, find the one, create the one that's most exciting, most love-based for you. Because that one contains within it the path of least resistance. So you will then experience that healing process through the path of least resistance. It will allow for you to move through it in a smooth and fluid way. And the idea is some of you may not even require a therapy, a health modality at all. Some of you may simply be able to embrace and love that state enough where you can then fully integrate it, let it go, and then shift right into the already healed state. So some of you have that capacity as well. But if you feel inspired to utilize a health modality, it is best to utilize that modality as you are going through that process of embracing it.
Thank you for that. Okay. Christine has a question. Go ahead, Christine.
Greetings and blessings.
And greetings and blessings to you.
I was wondering, in the case of the healing,
yes,
if I imagine a person who I wish to help heal, moving them into a healing chamber in one of the pyramids, would I be able, is that possible to help them heal? Or?
Yes, of course. The idea is through your meditative process, you're able to bring into their auric field in that way the energies of that healing chamber. Yes, and it will also link you to the spirit guides of that healing chamber that can also facilitate in the assistance of their healing transformation.
Okay. Is it something like Reiki where I have to ask them for permission to do this for them? I mean, the person is really suffering and from Crohn's disease, and I wish to help them or ease them some of their suffering.
Yes, the idea would be, of course, to ask permission. May I do a healing on you?
Okay.
It's the same thing when you ask someone, may I pray for you?
Oh, okay.
Understanding it's the same thing. You don't necessarily have to get into all of the specifics of what that prayer or healing will contain, unless, of course, there is something within that may be in many ways a little challenging for them. It may be wise to give them some context so they understand what they're signing up for. If there is in that way something that may be very challenging as a side effect of that healing process. But the idea is when you say to someone, may I pray for you, you're not simply going to say to them, all right, I'm going to pray for you. And in that prayer, I'm going to say the Hail Mary, the Our Father. I'm going to chant mudras. I'm going to, in many ways, just say anything that comes to mind that's inspiring. Is that okay with you? They may say yes, but the idea is all of that may be essentially not required for that process in terms of discipline and permission.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from, let me see. There's a question from, where did it go? Oh, seriously serious is the questions. The serious, the planet. That's cute. Any advice on how to enhance telepathic abilities, please, for people without experience who are quite head-centered?
Yes. Well, the idea is to become more heart-centered, largely. Remember that your heart commands the brain. Many of you think it's the other way around. My brain tells my body what to do. It is actually your heart that is the organizing principle of your body. because your heart is love, your heart is passion, and passion and excitement and joy are the organizing principles of your life if you can allow for them to be so. The heart in that way is a beacon of that energy. It naturally emanates that if you can tune into its original frequency. So the idea would be to tune into the heart, meditate on the heart, and it will automatically allow for you to become less head-based, number one. Number two, as you begin to tune into the heart, go into your breathing, feeling simultaneously your heart and the love in your heart as you go into deep respiration. And begin to become aware of the space around you as you do this, feeling your whole body, but also the space around you in all directions. What does the space below you feel like? What does the space above you feel like? What does the space in front and behind you feel like? And left and right feel like? And feel the qualities of these spaces as you are breathing and feeling the heart. And what will happen is you are expanding the heart and lung awareness into your aura, into your field. And it is here where many of your guides in that way are located. So what ends up happening is when you expand the breath and the heartbeat into that field around you, it's allowing for you to merge the awareness of those organs with your guides so they can begin to send energies to you. And the idea is, as you are breathing, feeling the space, scan into the directions. What does that direction in front of you feel like? Can you detect a presence there? And the idea is to go into a neutral, receptive mindset where you simply say a sentence in that way to the guide or a word to the guide. Sense the guide in any direction the guide may be in. We'll just use the front direction for the example and just simply say to them, hello, and continue to breathe and notice what comes to you. There may be a feeling that comes to you. There may be a thought form and a feeling that comes to you. The idea is to simply ask your questions or say certain greetings or messages or prayers of thanks to your guides, and then simply feel what comes to you as you do this. And the idea is it may come as a thought with a feeling, or it may just be a feeling in and of itself. And the idea is as you get the feeling, begin to focus on the feeling if they send you just that. And what you may find is as you begin to meditate on the feeling, the message that is contained within the feeling will then open up for your mind to be able to perceive. So it's almost like if they send you just an emotion, just energy, just a state, as you meditate on what you've received, it will begin to open up and reveal information. It will blossom like a flower when you give it your attention. But the idea is mechanically, the heart field is linking you to their hearts, and the breath in many ways represents a transfer of non-physical energy. So you are utilizing your body in a very grounded way to be able to have that type of connective dialogue. Because if you're all up in the head, you become rather limited. Because the head only is designed for certain functions. But when you begin to use the abilities of the other organs and the abilities of the rest of your body, you start to ground yourself, so you become less head-based, and it opens you up to a more unlimited point of view where you can then have greater levels of connection to the beings you are then already connected to.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a question from Tinfoil Hatter. It says, what would a higher dimensional sphere look like?
It would, in many ways, a higher dimensional sphere.
Yes, that was the question.
In that way, depend on the observer of that sphere, largely. Understanding the spherical structure in that way is the natural geometry of consciousness. However, when a lower dimensional being begins to perceive in that way a higher dimensional sphere, it may appear incredibly different to that lower dimensional being. They may be able to, in that way, perceive a great deal of realities contained within the sphere. It also, in that way, depends on the consciousness that is, in that way, representing the higher dimensional sphere. We would require a little bit more information about the specifics of this question to go much further than that. One moment. We have in that way lost audio. We are unable.
Okay, sorry, we're here. Here we go. Sorry for that. There's a question from Mimi Clara. She says, some believe that they are being attacked by outside negative forces. Is this the case? If so, why is this happening? If not, please explain what is happening.
Understand that you are creating that. That's not to say it's not happening, but understand that only happens in certain realities where you are creating that. Does that make sense so far?
So far, yes, to me.
Yes. So understand that what is required in many ways to transcend these realities is the idea of knowing you cannot be psychically attacked, because in order to actually have that experience you call the attack, you must match its vibration. You must match its energy. So the idea is that if there is something within you that's in resonance with the energy of which you call the attack, then you will then experience those types of situations. But the idea is, if you can simply own those aspects of yourself that are triggered when the attack occurs, and you then dissolve the idea of it even being possible for you to be psychically attacked, it will not allow for those realities to connect anymore. You will have shifted away from it, and then you will be in a situation where you can begin to process your own challenges, your own resistance, without also creating that overlay experience of an attack. It will in many ways separate those realities. From here, the idea is to begin to process those energies within yourself that are triggered during the attack, because the only reason that type of situation comes to you is because there is something within you that is requiring transformation. That is why those types of things happen. It is meant to essentially invoke lesson learning within you so you can overcome different challenges within yourself. But the idea is you don't have to experience the triggering of those energies within yourself through the dynamic of being attacked. That's an option. So one thing I would recommend in general as a permission slip tool to be able to move out of those realities would be to simply say to yourself, I do not get attacked. I do not create a reality where I am attacked. And as you say that to yourself, feel love, feel joy, feel excitement, feel passion. And as you program that thought with that state of being, you're crystallizing it into a belief system. You are creating a belief system. It's your belief systems that then create your reality. So as you create the thought that represents the reality you wish to shift to, feel that thought, embrace that thought, and program that thought with an ecstatic state of being of love and joy. And what will happen is the thought in many ways and that imagined reality represents GPS coordinates to a particular reality, a particular version of yourself. As you then infuse that thought with love and joy, it's as if you are turning the key in your car and you're following that GPS to that reality. And you then will go through that process of fully experiencing yourself as that version of yourself in the reality you are creating. So begin to say those types of things to yourself. Create those beliefs to yourself. I do not get attacked. And feel love and joy when you say that. You can also say to yourself, I do not create negative energies in my reality. And feel love and joy as you say that. You can also say, I love interacting with all forms of life. And feel love and joy in yourself. And what will happen is you'll be shifting away from realities where there are individuals that you are creating and co-creating with that then are inclined to want to attack you for whatever reason.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Very much. Very nice. Okay. There is another question. 1 second. I'm trying to get to the questions here. Let's see. People are asking for healing. More people are asking for healing. Marcia was asking for healing. Another person's asking for healing. I think maybe we might request if you wanted to do maybe a healing meditation, if that's possible for the people.
We will allow at this moment. It is
okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Now, for all of you who are in that way asking for healing, Allow for yourself to follow these instructions, understanding for those of you who in many ways are not asking for healing, but would like to expand your DNA connections to other worlds, your ancestors and your descendants, you may also participate in this. This is a meditation that is essentially going to be bringing the idea of healing energy, love-based energy into multiple realities that you are connected to. This in many ways allows for you to draw upon the natural support and guidance and energetic states of being of those other realities. And a side effect of that largely is your body begins to go through a healing process because it's changing your DNA, and it is in that way your DNA that then codes for the expression of your body. Allow for yourself to begin to close your eyes, bringing the tip of your tongue to the roof of the mouth, feeling your breath very slow, very deep, noticing how your abdomen expands as you inhale. Feeling this energy of natural breathing. Whenever you slow your breath and you deepen your breath, you bring in energies that will already begin to initiate healing processes throughout your system. So in that way, deep breathing is step one for healing. As you continue to breathe, become aware of your heart, and you can even place your hands on your heart. And feel your heartbeat. And feel your heartbeat as it ripples throughout your body. Feel how that vibration of the pulsing of your heart travels throughout your whole body. It is programming your body. That beat is the language of the heart. And as you hold your hands over your heart, feel that subtle vibration throughout your whole system. For those of you who are requiring healing, this part will be specific for you. For those of you who wish to open up a particular skill or work on a particular chakra, utilize that chakra or energy center in the next part of this meditation. For those of you that are asking for healing, follow this instruction. Bring the vibration you feel of your heart to the area you say you have an issue. And as your heart beats, feel that heart vibration in that area. And as you feel the heart vibration, continue to deepen the breath and feel how you are now breathing into that area. You are in this moment bringing energy from your higher self through the heart and spiritual energy through the breath to the area you are focusing on. And feel the sensation of this area breathing. Feel as if that area is your lungs. And feel the heart vibration there. Feel how the heart vibration travels there. This next part may be a little silly for some of you, but this is very powerful. If you are willing, allow for yourself to go into laughter. Induce laughter. The idea would be, you all know what laughter sounds like. The idea is as you hold the heart and as you feel this area and the vibration there, begin to generate laughter, even if it feels as if you're faking it, into that area. For those of you that are using this to open psychic skills, laugh into that area. We will spend approximately 30 seconds. We inspire all of you who are involved to join us in this laughter, for it will be amplified through our energy. And as you laugh, laugh from the belly. And feel how your body becomes warm. That is your energy moving. The laughter is neutralizing any energies within the area that do not serve. And the idea is it is bringing love and joy into that area. And as you have done this laughter, begin to feel in your heart the vibration of love and joy. Feeling love and joy in the heart. Feeling that area again that you have the issue in or that you wish to activate. And feel the love and joy and that area at the same time. And as you feel the heart vibration in that area, feel how the love and joy of the heart is now connected to it. And what I would like for you to do is to internally whisper, send a message to your heart. Say to your heart, continue to send love and joy to this area at all moments. And feel how the heart is now beginning to follow suit. Feel how the link between your heart and that area is now strengthening because of the intention and the request you have given to the heart. And smile to yourself and feel how your smile is now being charged with the heart energy. And give your heart thanks for its healing power and for its ability to activate these areas in a positive, healing way. And as you feel the heart, inwardly begin to look into your heart. Imagine the visual quality of the heart. And begin to see within the heart DNA, the double helix DNA structure. See this in your heart. And as your heart beats, feel that vibration in the DNA you are visualizing within the heart. And as you smile and feel love, feel that influence in that DNA. Feel how these energies are now changing the DNA. And begin to inwardly zoom your vision into the DNA. So you're looking at it close up. So you can still see the double strands and the nucleotide connections of the two strands. In that way, the bridges, the line-based bridges between the two strands. And see this here. And begin to bring your heart vibration, your love vibration through the DNA. Imagine you're very slowly washing down the double strands and the connections of the double strands. And bring the love and joy down through the DNA. You can imagine the love and joy as light that is washing the DNA. Like you're doing a body scan, but for this DNA in the heart. The body scan being fueled by the heart vibration. You can breathe into the DNA as well and work your way down the DNA structure, like you're slowly washing the whole imagined DNA within you. And as you smile and feel love in the DNA, feel how the DNA is actually now emanating that same vibration back to you. How it's not a one-way street. When you communicate with your DNA communicates back to you. And feel that connection to the DNA in the heart. And allow for yourself to give the request to the heart again, to continuously send this love and joy energy to the DNA. And feel the heart DNA connection strengthen. And when you are ready, allow for yourselves to open your eyes and return to the space around you.
Thank you.
Yes, you are quite welcome.
Okay. Let me just scroll up here because there's some questions that have come in and I want to make sure I get them. Okay. Okay. Oh, here's a question from Cami. She says, does a perfect language exist in a sense that its use doesn't distort understanding, thought processes, and perceptions of reality? I have an idea of an answer, but please answer if you have one.
Well, remember, all languages are going to have different understandings of what you call the idea of separation built into them, because the language is created because it's being created in a reality where beings are requiring language to bridge the illusion of gaps that they have between themselves. So the idea is whenever you have a reality where you're experiencing degrees of separation, language then becomes required to bridge the illusion of that gap of separation. So all languages in that way are going to have limitations that are just a part of that experience. The idea is that as you begin to transcend the idea of what you call physicality and go into more non-dual based realities, language in that way becomes less and less and less relevant. And the idea is at that point, you simply are beginning to communicate with one another based on energy, and the energy has within it built-in understanding, because you in that way, when you are in those types of realities, are unlimited. So you can see that energy in crystal clear clarity and understand it automatically and know it without having to translate it. It will simply be a part of you because you're not experiencing the idea of separation. Remember, all things are perfect already. Even what you call darkness in that way or negativity is still perfect, because everything in creation is perfect, because creation in and of itself is perfection. It does not make mistakes. Everything it then creates is a representation of its natural perfection. Even if it's something you say you don't prefer, it has still been perfectly created through the theme of what you do not prefer. So in that way, all languages are perfect already. Now, of course, there are alterations that have been made to some of your languages that have certain intentions behind them that may be designed to conceal information or to limit understandings. But understand that generally speaking, all language has limitation, because all language is utilized to bridge the gaps of the illusion of separation. But even those languages that may have alterations made to them are still in that way perfect.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. There's a question that says, can you explore with us, it's from Andrea, the question is from Andrea. She says, can you explore with us the power of unconditional self-love?
Yes, this is essentially what can allow for you to create a utopian version of your reality. And the idea is that utopian version already exists. There's already a reality where that's happening. And when you go into unconditional self-love, you're lining up with that reality. And as long as you fundamentally stay in that state, no matter what, the idea is you will always be moving into that reality. And everything you then experience from being in that state is simply that process of allowing for that state to crystallize in your I am presence experience of the now. So as you move into that reality, you may go through a variety of lesson learnings, but as long as you stay in the state of unconditional self-love, you will transform and integrate all lessons that are a prerequisite for the full shifting into the embodied experience of that reality in a direct physical way. It will also allow for you to begin to create versions of reality that are more and more and more reflective of that utopian state. So you'll start to see more and more and more utopian social dynamics, utopian political dynamics, and all types of different things. And the idea is it will also allow for you to explore your relationships with the world around you and with others through that same type of energy. The idea is to bring that idea of unconditional self-love into all dimensions of the self, bringing it into the thoughts, bringing it into the actions, and allow for everything that you do to be a creation from that place. That is in many ways just a snippet of the power of unconditional self-love.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There is another question. There's many questions, but it says, this is from Tinfoil Hatter. He says, the movement of a line generates a plane, right? The movement of a plane generates a solid, right? What movement can a solid make to generate a higher dimensional figure of itself?
One moment. In general, what you understand to be spiraling motion, spinning. So if you in that way spin, you vortex a solid object, it will begin to have in that way a transformative effect that will allow for a higher dimensional energy to then be opened in terms of the expression of that solid.
Okay.
That would be the movement dynamic.
Thank you. Okay, this is from AJ, and it says, what advice can you give to someone who in their default state has trouble feeling empathy for others and empathizing with them?
Well, remember, that's not their default state. Number one, the idea is that that is in many ways a callous state that has been created for whatever reason. It's not negative, so to say, in terms of an objective sense. It may be experienced in a negative way, but remember, it's not objectively negative, for all creation has light, dark, and neutral making it up. It has all of these aspects. The idea is that this type of state of being you call lacking of empathy is generally brought in because of belief systems that an individual is utilizing in their co-creation process. Generally speaking, they have more negative or limited definitions within their belief systems relating to relationships, relating to their relationships internal and external, with themselves and with others. And the idea is if they can begin to redefine their life and begin to go into states of unconditional love and joy, it will in that way completely dissolve any notion of callous in the first place. Remember, the callous is just something that's being temporarily created by that being in the now. And simply through shifting out of that callous by not acting as if you are callous, it will allow for that natural empathy that is already there but is being obscured by the illusion of callous to begin to emerge.
Thank you. There's a question from Rocco, and he says, near the Bosnian pyramids, there are tunnels which have very healing effect, especially at places by the megalithic stones. They're called the tunnels ravine. Can you explain or comment on this effect to us?
Yes, understand it's a portal, largely. It's interacting in that way with, again, different energy centers below your earth, where beings from those other societies that are actively using the pyramids in their time are able to then beam that energy of the already active pyramid to that tunnel and to those areas. It allows in that way for telepathic healing and communication to take place from those societies that, again, in their own realities, that are still using those pyramids in a very different way. And it can allow for you to, again, not just receive healing, but also directly commune with those beings as well. But you're essentially utilizing those energies to restore your body back into a state of balance, or to shift into the already healed state, as another way of describing them.
Fine. Thank you. Several people have asked, what are the best steps or the first steps to become an effective healer?
By understanding what the already healed state is. Imagine a state of being where you have always been healed. You have always had perfect health, where you have always been yourself. What does that unlimited version of yourself feel like? So we're going to begin to give you a few states of being to meditate upon. This will allow for you to go into a reality, to shift to a reality where you are embodying what you would consider to be a master level healer. The first one is being unlimited. What does it feel like to be unlimited in your body, your mind, your spirit, your points of view, your beliefs, your definitions? What does that feel like to be truly unlimited? What does it feel like to no longer be creating expectations? What does it feel like to have never created expectations in the first place? Because expectations, again, create limitation. So what does it feel like to be unlimited and to not have expectation? No expectation at all. What does it feel like to be fully yourself in all moments? What does it feel like to be fully in love with all things, including yourself? And the last one, the fourth one, what does it feel like to have always been in a state of perfect health? The idea here is that these four major energetic states, when they are stacked on top of one another, can allow for you to assist many individuals in very profound healings. The idea is not all individuals will choose to match that vibration, and they will then not create that healing effect, but there are many who will. They will choose to go there with you. Understanding that when you have these four energetic states of being stacked, the idea is number 5 would be to simply utilize whatever healing modality is most exciting and most relevant in that way for that person.
Thank you for that. Okay. There's another question that's good. It says, this is from Nathaniel. Is there a shortcut to bypass the ego? How do we let the ego know that we would like to communicate with our higher mind to help us without upsetting it?
Well, remember that the ego is just a filter. It just allows for you to be able to perceive reality through the human point of view. So the idea is you only really bypass that when you're dead, so to say, when you transition into non-physical. That's when you actually bypass the ego completely, because you no longer require the ego because you're not having the human experience. It's a side effect in that way of incarnation. That's all. There's nothing negative about it. The idea is if your ego feels upset when you are trying or working to connect to a higher version of yourself, that means you have bought into negative definitions and belief systems about your ego and about that connection process. So redefine the ego differently. Remember, it's just neutral. It's a neutral mask to assist you in perception of reality. So redefine the ego. Work out a loving relationship with the ego. Create a loving relationship with the ego and thank it for doing its job well. That will allow for you to work with the ego as an ally, so it's not an obstacle.
Thank you for that. Okay. There is a question. It says, can you explain the difference between, this is from Temple, fractals and aspects, please?
They are in that way similar in terms of how many of you utilize them in terms of your language. One moment. I am working on the channel's brain so he can stretch his imagination just a little bit more. Now, with that being said, they are very similar in terms of how you utilize them in your language. The idea is that a aspect in that way will always be a fractal. So when you say, oh, my love, and you're talking about the love you feel in your body as an aspect of yourself, you say, one of my aspects is unconditional love. The idea is that that aspect of yourself is a fractal for higher density versions of unconditional love, and it is also in that way connected to what you call a fractaling lower density version of unconditional love. So all aspects in that way, as you experience yourselves, are in that way fractals, because those aspects have higher and lower density versions of themselves, of those energies. So you could technically say that everything in that way is a fractal. Now, with that being said, you might utilize aspect and fractal in different ways in your language, and that's all well and good. But generally speaking, there are dramatic similarities between them.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, there is... there's a question from someone about asking medical advice about specific medicines. Do you give that kind of advice or not?
Not in this way, no. The channel himself will sometimes assist in that, but he will not give medical advice. He will in that way share information that may be beneficial, but understand, technically in your culture, only a MD, a physician, can legally give medical advice. That is why we do not provide it. And it is also why the channel does not provide it, because neither of us in that way feel like violating your agreed upon laws.
Thank you. So Catalin, he's not going to be able to answer your question. Okay. There's a question that says, can you expand on the effects of galactic energy healing and white magic on the DNA and Akashic records?
All right, one moment. It is a large question, so we are breaking it up. The idea is that what you understand to be your DNA in that way is linked to the Akashic. It is linked to the reservoir of information of what you call everything that is, was, and will be in relationship to your Earth experience. And the DNA also is linked to the Akashic energies in that way, to other realities altogether that are connected to the DNA. Because your DNA is linked to Earth, and it is also linked to a variety of other extraterrestrial civilizations. So the idea is that your DNA in that way is then linked to the Akashic of those worlds. With that being said, when you begin to invoke the idea of what you call galactic healing, or what you call, well, we'll start with that, because white magic is also an umbrella term in many ways. So we would require a little bit more specifics in that way to directly answer that question. But what you call galactic energies, when you are utilizing galactic energies, it is allowing largely for higher density extraterrestrial information to then be programmed into the DNA itself. This then in many ways can have a very powerful healing effect on the body, as well as a psychic activation effect for the individual. It begins to turn on a being's perception so they can perceive more dimensions to their physical reality. It allows for them to also be able to accelerate lesson learning, because whenever you raise someone's vibration, which galactic energy will certainly do to the DNA, it will then create a sensation where the individual will raise in vibration, but anything within them that's in resistance to that shift will then be triggered, and the individual will go through an integration process, which can be handled in whatever way the individual prefers. And that is a side effect of the galactic energy on the DNA. It will catalyze lesson learning. But because, again, the DNA is linked to the Akashic, past, present, and future, of all that is, was, or will be for your world and a variety of other worlds, those galactic downloads then get broadcasted into those other realities. So it has in that way a species level and planetary level type of upgrade effect to it. So it's very powerful energy and it's very beneficial. Whenever you are acting on your DNA, you are automatically affecting the Akashic, in the sense that you are in that way sending energies to those realities that you consider to be contained within the Akashic. And it allows for you to co-create reality in a way where you are shifting to versions of the Akashic that are then a vibrational match for those energies you have just downloaded into the DNA. In relationship to white magic, it would depend largely on the specific protocol and intention behind the white magic, because there are many techniques that can be utilized that fall into that category of what you call white magic. But generally speaking, it's mechanically the same thing. It will in that way have whatever the intention and programmed effect is in the DNA level, thus affecting the person in that way. And it will also then affect the DNA connections through the Akashic link.
Thank you. Thank you for that very much.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the next question is, well, okay. I don't know if this was something you can speak about, but someone wants to know about the history of the Bulgarians, their origin and language.
All right. One moment. In general, they had a very nomadic culture originally that was very nature-based, that allowed for them to commune very powerfully with animal consciousness and plant consciousness. These nomadic peoples began to unify over time, and it allowed for their deep nature connection to allow for them to very greatly have a level of empathy for one another and an ability to communicate to one another without having to speak. They were able to sense one another's energy. They were able to, in that way, deliver heart-based communicative messages to one another. And this then eventually began to build into their society, understanding that a language eventually became more required, that was more physical in nature, to be able to more greatly interact with the surrounding areas, territories, and peoples as societies began to blossom and form.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yes.
All right. There is a question that says, okay, Shane Bridges says, if you can read DNA, it's the same thing as the Akashic records, right? I've
Yes,
started
the
to
same.
be, yeah, she
Yes.
says, I've been able to see numbers and memories associated with DNA, still trying to figure out exactly what I'm experiencing.
Yes, remember, whenever you're reading DNA, you're tapping into the Akashic. Yes.
Okay. Lee Dwyer says, are you able to describe a visual for a 12-strand DNA?
Yes, one moment. There is a particular shape in your reality that is a circle, and there are in that way 12 lines, you could say, that then converge in the center from the borders of that circle. And the idea is to allow for this to become a three-dimensional image, imagining that what you're looking at as that shape becomes a cross-section of a tube. And imagine that those different lines that are converging at the center point are in that way holographic lines that extend in that linear way down the tube. Understanding that this in many ways would represent the 12 strands. This is a way you could begin to conceptualize in a visual sense the idea of 12-stranded DNA.
Okay, thank you. All right, there is a question from Nathaniel that says, does fluoride affect our psychic and other abilities negatively, or only if we believe that it does?
Well, remember, it generally speaking can have an effect in your body over time, but the idea is that you largely create that effect. The fluoride in many ways will be something that can affect you differently in certain realities depending on your belief systems. So if you are utilizing a belief system where you believe it will be a toxin and where it will negatively affect you, then it may very well have that effect. In general, though, if you believe that it will have no negative effect on you and that you in that way create the effect because you create your reality, you will in that way not experience a negative effect from the fluoride. But with that being said, when individuals are in a situation where they are gravitating to substances, whether it be food or whether it be contaminants, that you say are negative for your bodies, generally speaking, those substances are being manifested into that person's reality because of what you would call a negative belief system in the person. You attract in that way what you call the effect of poison or toxins into your reality based off of belief systems that you could poetically say are toxic. So the idea is that when you begin to buy into the notion that this fluoride in the water I'm consuming will have no effect on me, you're largely overriding that effect, and you are not creating that. However, because there are subconscious negative beliefs within you, the idea is that those negative beliefs may become active as the fluoride is then introduced into the body. So it still may have some effects that are negative, but it may in many ways not have a net or overall negative effect. It really depends on the person's vibration and their belief in their ability to not have negative belief systems. Really, if you can believe and know you're not utilizing negative belief systems, then it is highly possible to consume those substances and not have a negative blockage effect in your system at all. But the idea is if you have those energies within you that end up attracting in certain toxins, certain pollutants, the idea is you may be able to override a lot of it, but some of those effects may still then become crystallized through that connection the substance has to the negative belief system. So again, it's a case-by-case basis, but there are many situations in your reality where people override the effect of the physical reality that many of you experience and create for yourselves. For example, the ancient practitioners that were able to consume, for example, lead, or were able to consume different toxic substances, being able to experience them and have no effect. There are also cases in your planet's history of individuals consuming psychedelic compounds, which you call psychedelic drugs, and having no effect. So these types of things are possible, but it is case by case because it depends on the individual's level of consciousness. And in an alchemical sense, you could say the purity or the alignment, rather, of their belief systems with their true self.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Okay, there's a question from earlier from Marcia. She says, finding ancient rocks on the beach that has faces and the mouth moves. Any suggestions?
Does she mean her mouth moves?
I don't. I believe the mouth on the face of the rock that she's finding on the beach. She's finding ancient rocks on the beach that has a face and the mouth that moves. Any suggestions?
In general, she's finding that she's shifting reality through working with the rock. The rock in many ways amplifies her ability to shift into different parallel realities. It allows for her to take quantum leaps, you could say. It's assisting her in her own ability to do that as a permission slip. And the idea is that as she's interacting with these rocks, she's noticing the fact that she's jumping into different realities where the rock is slightly different, or in some cases, dramatically different.
Okay. There's a question about, is there any connection between the Akashic and the higher self?
Yes, understanding that what you call the Akashic is essentially the web of connectivity. It is the quantum web that links all things. Understanding the higher self in that way, you would say, could be looked at as the reader of that web or the explorer of that web. It is in that way a part of that web, but it is able to, of course, see the connections that are there. It is able to read it and simultaneously be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. What are the main goals of the collective Pleiadian civilization at this moment in time?
Well, remember that even though there are collectives within the Pleiades, there are a variety of different collectives that all have different agendas and different understandings and goals altogether, some of which are very interested in your Earth and take very direct action-based steps in relationship to your Earth, and others who are concerned with their own affairs or other civilizations altogether. So it really depends on which Pleiadian collective you are speaking of, but in general, the ones that are interacting with your planet largely are assisting your planet in its transformation to becoming utopia. They are in that way working with the populations here to inspire the populations to embody more of their true selves, to embody more of unconditional love, so you on Earth can begin to create a more utopian society that begins to match the types of societies that many Pleiadian civilizations have created and have existed in for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years.
Okay. There is this question, one second. The person that was asking about Bulgaria is asking about the ethnic origin and what type of language did they speak? Was it Iranian-based, Turkish, or something else?
It was something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mimi is asking, is each strand of DNA a tiny vortex in movement?
Yes.
Okay. And Olga is asking, how do you encourage third eye activation? What are the blocks?
Well, it again will be unique, but largely the blocks are the negative perceptions, or what you understand to be the limitations on your ability to utilize your third eye. If you can begin to go into the awareness of, I'm using my third eye right now, and send love into that awareness, you're opening it. And if you then begin to say, my third eye is completely unlimited, and feel love in that knowingness, then it begins to open. And the idea is you can say those things and feel those feelings in the pineal gland itself. The idea is to simply bring your fingers to the tops of your ears and slightly back, right at the apex of the ear in the center of the head and slightly back, to feel into the center of the head where your pineal gland can be found. And the idea is you can meditate into this area, sending love into this area, and then saying these types of affirmations to yourself, which then crystallize the idea of new belief systems in relationship to the third eye. And then from here, the idea would be to imagine that there is an eyeball in your head. Imagine the pineal gland in and of itself is an eyeball, and see that eyeball open. And then begin to take a look around very slowly, absorbing in all of the different types of visual stimuli you see on an internal level. This will allow for you to begin to practice seeing with the third eye in a very literal way. And then the idea is you can stay in prolonged states, observing and traveling all from the awareness of the pineal gland. You can have entire astral journeys in that way simply through the awareness of the pineal. And then when you return, so to say, to a normal state of consciousness, that effect will still be in effect when you open your eyes and return to your life in a more physical, interactive way. So you will then interact with the physical reality with all of the updates and upgrades and experiences you have had through the pineal traveling. In addition, as I've said, certain pollutants can affect the third eye, as many of you are already aware of. So detoxification processes can also assist you on a physical level in being able to open the third eye's fullest potentiality.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's a question from Steve that says, he has a question about mass arrests that some star families speak of. Does the new Navy Directive 550-19 have anything to do with these mass arrests? The directive makes it possible to use our military reserves for domestic emergencies.
Understand that the way the law is written could allow for such a thing, but remember that's not happening on every earth. So if you say that's something you do not prefer, do not match the vibration of that reality. If you want to know what the vibration of that reality is, simply imagine an earth where that's happening. That feeling you feel is the GPS coordinates to that reality. So do not stay in that state of being. You can become aware of it and you can interact with it and say, oh, wow, what lessons does this reality have for me? How can I learn these lessons of that reality without having to actually shift into that reality to learn them? What is it teaching me? How can this allow for me to become more unlimited in my point of view so I can continue to create the utopia I prefer? Because remember, just because you're seeing these things enacted in your population and in your government does not actually mean it's happening on your version of Earth. Remember, you're able to perceive other parallel reality versions of Earth all the time. That's a natural perception that all of you have, but many of you mistake it for being your version of Earth because you see it as an extension of your physical reality. But the idea is to understand that these are different Earths. The Earth you are on is determined by your state of being, by your vibration. But yes, in certain realities where that is taking place, that is one potential of it. But understand that's not all realities, and there is no guarantee that that is happening at all. So if you say you do not prefer that reality, let its vibration go. Become unlimited. Realize you create the reality experience you're having altogether, so you have the power to never have to create that if you say that's something you do not prefer to create. And the idea would be to match the vibration in that way of your true nature, of your true self, so you can shift to a version of Earth, a parallel reality version of Earth that matches the energy of that true self. And then any lessons you have learned from investigating the more negative reality, the less preferred reality, you can then utilize as experience in creating utopia.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Mondayon. He says, has the character and effects of the, I believe it's psilocybin, or I don't know how you say it, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, has that changed? Thank you. Has that changed since 2012?
It is still the active ingredient, but remember, it works as a team player in a variety of other compounds. That is why if you take what is known as synthesized psilocybin, it may have similar effects, but it won't be identical. The idea is psilocybin is a team player in relationship to the other compounds within the psilocybin mushrooms, and it also utilizes the natural earth-based consciousness of that mushroom in and of itself. It has not necessarily changed in terms of its atomic structuring, its molecular structuring, but understand that as you raise your vibration, the effects you are able to have from these substances begin to change. So you can have more unlimited experiences, more expanded experiences through utilizing these substances as you progress further and further and further down the timeline, or rather up the timeline is a more appropriate way to say it, because you're moving upwards in vibration. As you move up the timeline, the idea is the effects of these compounds will change significantly. And that is why many of your medicinal herbs are now being, in many ways, reinvestigated for having a variety of other uses that were previously unknown. It's because the effect of those compounds within them is beginning to change. And as you shift reality and you go into more and more parallel realities that are more positive, you may find that other compounds are also discovered within these substances that also have a variety of other effects as well too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. There is a question from Nathaniel. He says, are you able to share some vibrational auditory notes that we can use in meditation vocally to increase our vibrational frequency?
One moment. Is he essentially asking for the channel to tone in that way?
I believe so.
All right. The channel largely does not have the training to be able to produce tones that would be effective in that way in general toning, but light language, as you understand it, can in that way be spoken very effectively through him. That will allow for our energies that can induce very deep states of being to then be shared with all of you. If that is something that is desired at this time, we would be happy to share that in replacement in that way of a simple tone.
I believe anything is welcome. I have the question, what about just the simple sound of ah held into a tune? Because everybody has their own vocal range, and the simple sound of ah is the beginning of om. So I'm wondering if that's not just a simple tone. I believe that this is a request along the lines of requesting the hathors and the toning that they do with the different sounds. But if you want to do light language, please share that.
One moment. We have a greater understanding of the request. This is something that can be done. One moment. We will provide both. The light language will allow for the channel's throat to become more open, and this will increase the power of this tone. One moment. Ayoko kanatayakor, hayatomoyo chiro to hoi yapo, ukoyoto kayata nyapoyoto, ushurakamyoto yapoyana. Oyoko ukataya choro to ayakanaya rakai shatana. Ushoto e goisher anyo poishatana utayakaya hauroto shato netokono laetonaya chako utanyoto shurkanyono. Thank you. One moment.
Can I suggest that you stop and restart the tone, because any prolonged sound, your microphone cuts it off.
All right. One moment.
Thank you.
Yes, you are very welcome, and we thank you for opening this door for the channel.
Okay, there is a question about, okay, it's from Dempsey. He says, why don't the Pleiadians visit the world leaders and encourage our leaders to bring truth to the people about our abilities and origins?
They do. A lot. A lot. In many ways that you are not aware of. They frequently travel to them in dreams.
And
world leaders are aware of this, and many of your world leaders have actually come public about this. There are certain politicians within the country you understand to be Canada that have come forward about this, and they are not the only ones. There are many countries where world leaders are beginning to speak up, and the talk of global disclosure is occurring.
Okay, because if there's a follow-up question by the same person, it says, are there some Pleiadians that don't want humans to evolve?
Understand that there are Pleiadians in which you would call your past that may have felt this way at different times in their evolution, but largely that is not the consensus. No, there are many that are indifferent because they are simply absorbed into different interests, different passions. But there are many who understand the importance of human evolution and the power that has contained within it and its effect on all of existence. So there are many Pleiadians that are very inspired to assist you all in that process. But understand there may have been some in the past that did not really prefer it for a variety of reasons, simply because of the limitations and the negative themes they were exploring in their origin. Because remember, they came in that way from a society that had a variety of different conflicts. So they were not always in that way what you understand to be positive in terms of their overall vibration. They, in many ways, were experiencing in their very ancient ancestry a great deal of negative realities that involved war. And the idea was they had to learn to overcome this. And that is how they were able to then ascend into the version of their societies they have now created. That is why they are in that way some of your civilization's most direct guides, because you are all going through that same thing, where there are individuals in some of the versions of Earth you've been on that say, we don't want humanity to evolve. We want to stay the way we are. We like our comfort zone. There are versions of Earth where that has been part of your journey. Many of you have probably said that to yourselves in past realities you've been through, where you say, this is just the way I am and I don't want to change. So the idea is you've also embodied these energies at different points in reality as well. And you're learning how to match that Pleiadian energy through matching your own energy, and now creating a society where you are evolving. Thus, then you begin to attract in versions of these extraterrestrials that then wish for evolution for your species to take place. And the idea is the more involved in your evolutionary process you become, the more you shift to a version of Earth where the only extraterrestrials that are interacting with Earth are the ones that actually are assisting you in your evolution.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, there is another question that says, one moment, sorry. This is, I don't know if this is possible, but it says, can you share with us a poetic motivational quote in your language followed by its translation?
Not at this time. Understand, we do not actually utilize a language. Just as we have said in the earlier question, as you begin to ascend in your vibration and you begin to occupy less dualistic, separate reality experiences, the idea is language no longer becomes required. Now, our people, when we were more physical, did have in that way an ancient language, but it is not something we are going to get into at this time.
Okay, and then there's a question from Olga asking about tones to activate light language, or I would even expand it to maybe beyond tones, but things that will activate light language.
Yes, understand that in general, which you know to be the vibrations of love and joy, along again with the qualities of being unconditional and not having an expectation. Similar to the 4 pillars we delivered in relationship to your idea of healing and being a master healer, the same types of different pillars are really involved. For in order for you to truly be all that you can be, the idea is to have those 4 pillars present. I will repeat them again. The idea is the pillar of no expectation, the pillar of being unlimited, the pillar of being yourself, fully following your joy, following your passion. And as you embody these qualities, what will happen is you then place in whatever the vibration of that skill is. So go into those pillars and then incorporate the vibration of light language. How do you feel when you speak light language? How do you feel when you listen to light language? What does that feeling state feel like in you? Stack those together, begin to optimize them, and then simply begin to go into that state with the knowingness you are able to do so.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There is the question from Dempsey again. He says, how can I ask a community of Pleiadians to commune with me? I meditate and chant and have had one instance of leaving my body and panicked. I feel alone.
All right. Well, clearly, if you almost left your body, you're not very alone. It sounds like your star family was making contact with you. So it sounds like you're on the right track. But what I would recommend is the idea of letting go of the belief that you are alone and understand that that has to be an illusion, because it's impossible for anyone in your reality to actually be alone. You are always connected to a web of life that is both in that way part of your physical reality, but also your infinite unseen reality. So begin to let go of that concept of being alone if that's something you prefer to do, and understand that in general, your ability to feel the heart connection that you have to all beings in your reality will allow for you to begin to trust that you're never alone and to know that you are never alone. And that heart-based quality of trust will then assist you in being able to greatly commune with the Pleiadians. And in that way, should they begin to bring you out of body again with your own higher self in that way, you will find that you will have a greater level of trust with them. So the process may then not become interrupted.
Okay. There's a question from Joy, and she says, I've had strong panic-inducing vertigo dizziness for a year now. How could this possibly be resolved? I'm not sure if it's an energetic reattunement or an organ synthesis insufficiency.
Please repeat the question one more time.
She says, I've had strong panic-inducing vertigo dizziness for a year now. How could this possibly be resolved? I'm not sure if it's an energetic reattunement or an organ synthesis insufficiency.
In general, it is a disconnect from the planet. Energetically, it's the illusion of a disconnect. What we would suggest is for this individual to spend time in nature, laying in nature, if that is not problematic for her vertigo. The idea is laying in nature, getting rooted, getting grounded, burying the feet, and breathing in the earth energy, nourishing herself with the earth energy will allow for her to really embody that connection she has with the earth. When an individual is then grounded and rooted with the earth, generally speaking, those types of energies that rise up, that create dizziness and vertigo from the body will then be weighed down, pulled down by the force of gravity you're then embodying in your system. So that force of gravity that is akin to the earth energy will then have a gravitational effect on the energies that are then rising upwards and escaping in that way. It will root them in, and it will allow for those types of symptoms to then go away. But remember, if this is something that is concerning to her, it is important that she follows her passion in relationship to dealing with these things.
Okay. And it's also advisable to make sure you don't have an inner ear imbalance that's causing vertigo as well. It could be fluid on the ear as well. So please check with your doctor first. And then when they say they don't know why, but also ground, it's always good. There's a question from AJ that says, or actually from Nathaniel, it says, are you able to share how closely we're able to get to know the purpose of our individual soul contract here on earth? And does that purpose evolve?
Yes, understand the purpose for being here is to simply be yourself, number one. It is always that. It is always to be who you are. From there, what you consider to be secondary purposes then begin to reveal themselves to you. These secondary purposes may then be reflected in what you understand to be your soul contract. When an individual is not fully being themselves, they are unable to fully fulfill the soul contract. And the idea is that when individuals fully themselves, they can then participate in the soul contract, which then oftentimes contains the secondary purpose energy. So they can begin to discover more about themselves. They begin to discover more about their excitements and their passions, so they can then more greatly integrate and live those energies. But generally speaking, what you are excited about, what you feel passionate about, which you love to do in that way, those are the expressions of your natural self. You can understand them to be your secondary purpose. The primary purpose is to be who you are.
Thank you. There's the last two questions we're going to take. One is from AJ, and it says, how do you connect easier with other aspects of yourself or with beings in your soul family?
All right, this is a double part question. So part one, to connect two different aspects of yourself, remember that you are infinite. Remember that you are infinitely connected to all of your other selves, all of your other parallel incarnations. These are all happening right now. Understanding that they are constantly communicating with you always. Step one is to believe that you're already in communication, to know you're already connected. That will put you in the state of being where you can begin to perceive those connections. So it's never a matter of how do I connect? It's a matter of knowing you're already connected. So know that connection is there. Feel that connection. What does it feel like to be connected to them? And you can then create imagery. You can even begin to imagine, for example, that your heart in that way, which is linked to the higher self, is in many ways connected via lines going in all directions that are linked to the hearts of all of your other selves. Yes. So imagine in that way that you are then expanding from your heart with lines in all directions that are linked to other versions of yourself. And remember, there's infinite of them, so create as many lines as you wish. Imagine these lines are in that way created to spheres. They're connected to spheres. These spheres represent the consciousness of the other self. And you can imagine that other self's heart within the sphere. So in many ways would look like a line protruding from your heart, connected to a sphere with a heart in the center of the sphere. And from here, using this sphere, you can begin to download the energetics from these other selves. So the idea is, imagine you have a great deal of these connections, and then simply begin to hone in on one of them as you scan through all of them that feels the most joyful, that feels the most exciting. And then begin to investigate the qualities of that heart. What does the individual's body who possesses this heart look like? What sort of body gender in that way do they have? Is it a male or female body type? What type of clothing does this being prefer? What type of skin color does this being possess? What type of environment does this being feel like it's in? What type of civilizations does it feel like this being is interacting with? And begin to create the version of your parallel self you're connecting with through that process of feeling into the energy and asking those types of questions as you feel into the answer using the imagination. This will allow for you to very greatly connect to your parallel incarnations. In relationship to soul family, remember that soul family is going to always reveal itself to you through the feeling of attraction. And oftentimes the feeling of wanting to be close to an individual, of feeling good when you're around an individual. When you find you are around somebody who you simply feel more inspired around, you feel like you can be yourself around, understand you generally are connecting to more positive versions of soul family that are in many ways assisting you in understanding more of your true nature. If you find yourself attracted and drawn to a being that is less positive, that maybe challenges you, understanding that feeling of attraction is drawing you into it, you understand to be a version of your soul family member who is helping you to explore more negative themes. But it, generally speaking, is the feeling of being drawn to someone, is the feeling of attraction. This many times can be mistaken for the feeling of sexual attraction for a person. Because the idea is many of you feel the feeling of attraction for one another in a romantic way most of the time. But the idea is that you oftentimes will mistake that feeling for a simple attraction to a soul family member. So begin to differentiate. And they can be romantic and a soul family attraction at the same time. But the idea is many of you find you're simply drawn to people. It is those people that you are likely drawn to that are soul family. And many of you may mistake that again for a romantic attraction.
Thank you. There is a question. This is the last question. It's from Michelle. She says, I astral traveled that I remembered a couple of times this week. Can you tell me more, please, about where I went and who I was with, if that's within your possibility to do that?
A little bit more information would be beneficial.
I don't know that we have the time, so I will send her. She'll be in the chat when we're finished. Maybe she can take this up with the channel and discuss it on another time. So we would like to thank you so very much. And maybe if you want to leave us with a blessing before we go, just before you do so, because we are running out of time, I just want to tell everyone next week we will have Jim Charles back, and then Tyler will be back on the 16th of November. So much love to you, and thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate everything you've shared. It was an amazing exchange and co-creation and so much detail. So thank you very much.
Yes, you are always welcome. It is our highest excitement to be able to have these interactions with your people.
And if you would like, yes.
We shall lead you through a blessing.
Yes.
You can use this as a guided meditation as well. If you wish to close your eyes and allow for your imagination to follow the words, it will have in that way an energetic effect on your system. The setting sun above us casts its infinite illumination into the fire of our hearts, remembering that we are all walking emanations of living light. The sun above represents the sun within. The moon above represents the moon within. For light is always present, no matter how dark the reality may seem. Understanding it is finding the inner light that allows for you to see into the unseen. We thank you for your gifts as infinite co-creators. Understand you are going through a powerful age of transformation that is unprecedented in many ways. We extend our unconditional love to all of you, individually, and all of you collectively. Thank you so much for this co-creation.
We will welcome Tyler back. Hi, Tyler. And just one more time before we go, and I'm sorry to rush this off, but there's some time commitments for you and for me and for some other people. So how can people get in touch with you, and tell them one more time about your event coming up in New York City?
Yes, so the event is in Manhattan. For those of you that are in the United States on the East Coast, or those of you that are more dispersed throughout the country, want to fly in, it's going to be November 2nd. In Manhattan, and I'm going to have more info on that on my Facebook page today. My business partner's been distributing it, but I'm going to start to promote it myself. But I'd love to see you there. It's going to be really fun. As I've said, we're going to be talking about the energy centers beneath New York, as well as their connections to the Akashic and to Atlantis and to other civilizations that have existed here previously. And was there another, I'm still kind of fuzzy. Was there another question?
I understand. And just one more thing, but you do private sessions. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yes. So you can message me through my Facebook, Tyler Ellison. I'll be your friend on Facebook. It'd be great. And you can also email me at tellison700@gmail.com, TELLISON700@gmail.com. Sessions are $200 for an hour, and we can do all types of fun stuff. Ryok's very good, can connect with your guides. He's patched other entities through, so it also can be a session that branches and involving more than one being. So thank you all so much. This was a blast to be on. Thank you, Karen. I had a great time. That 2 hours felt like 20 minutes. That was
It really did. It went so fast. So that's amazing. So we look forward to having you back on the 16th of November, and then in December and January and February and March.
Awesome. Oh, so lovely. I'm so excited. Happy to be a part of the community, and thanks for the co-creations. Awesome.
Thank you very much, and much love to everyone, and we'll see you next week. So.
Yep.